Welcome to the Music Travel Guide podcast. My name is Michael Piardi. I'm your host. Each month I bring you stories, insights, and guidance to help you navigate today's music industry as an independent artist or musician through the lens of amazing and important voices within music, singer-songwriters, music producers, music industry experts, and so forth. In this episode, I'm very, very happy to tell you that I'm joined by Grammy-winning keyboardist, composer, producer, and arranger Jason Miles, an artist whose legacy spans decades of music making across jazz, R&B, and beyond, and whose work has helped define the sound and direction of multiple musical eras, working alongside some of the most influential voices in modern music: Miles Davis, Luther Vandross, Aretha Franklin, George Benson, Grover Washington Jr., Marcus Miller, Michael Brecker, Chaka Khan, Diana Ross, and the list goes on. It's impressive. Jason also made a name for himself during the rise of the synthesizer in the late 70s and early 80s. Jason and his wife decided to relocate from New York City to Lisbon in 2022, and that's where I met Jason, here in Lisbon. And what started as a conversation became a very honest and enriching exchange for me. And for this, I'm very grateful and truly honored to have had the opportunity to sit down with him. This podcast interview is about the journey behind the music. So the decisions, the mindset, and the lessons that shape a sustainable creative life. And speaking up, I'm very happy to share this exchange I had with Jason with you. We begin our conversation with a subject that's quite deeply personal to me. We talk about what Luther Vandross understood about music that most musicians never quite grasp. And from that, Jason shares the biggest lessons he's learned across his outstanding career. So we explore all things creative decision-making, the importance of trust on the business side of music. And also, I've got the chance to explore with Jason his upcoming releases and projects for 2026 and his perspective on today's jazz landscape compared to the past. So I wanted to emphasize that this conversation is about principles that still guide artists today. So if you are an independent musician looking for clarity and perspective, I think you will find a lot of inspiration in today's conversation with Jason Miles. So now, without further delay, let's get straight into the conversation. Enjoy the listening.
Well, Luther had very humble beginnings in the Bronx in New York, a family with no money, lost his father early, understood what it was like to have a core group of friends that just, were with each other, that watched each other all the time. Fonzie Thornton and Robin Clark, Carlos Alamo, they grew up together and they all had the same ambition. And at that point, they watched each other's back, and Luther, saw, and when opportunity came up, they asked Luther to be part of that, because they believed in him. He had an amazing voice,
Yeah.
And what the story was that as time went on, he started developing more and more his own voice. He didn't just, the one thing that I love with it, he just didn't come out of it and goes, I'm here, I'm gonna be a big star, blah, 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 blah. No. His thing was he wanted to be a background singer and sing, the great background parts. He loved the Supremes. He loved all that kind of music. He studied all the different acts. He studied everybody, watching the Ed Sullivan Show on Sunday nights, and studied the albums and listened to this, and they'd all talk about music together. And then a couple of them got into the music scene a little deeper, and when opportunity came up on Sesame Street, they said, well, let's get Luther to come in and do this. And he came in, and and little things built up from there. But the one thing that he had in himself was the confidence in his voice and the confidence in himself as a singer, but not thinking that this is what he wanted to go off and do. He wanted to just sing. And then what happened was that he was starting to get a lot of work coming in, because he had an amazing voice, and he really brought, and it was getting recognized around New York. This is not like in 2 seconds. This is years,
Yeah.
This is years. This isn't like, oh, here it is, you know what I mean? It's all through his 20s. He's paying dues. He's in the studio. But he started to be able to make a living doing jingles, doing this, because he had a very unique voice. And what the story was that he got a gig with Roberta Flack, who, if you worked with Roberta, you were among the best. No matter what you did, you were among the best. And Luther was singing, and she was paying attention, more than he was paying attention. And she just came up to him, and she said to him after a show one night, Luther, this is going to be your last show with me, and because I'm letting you go. And he was like devastated, and then he just couldn't understand. Then he went over, what did I do wrong? And she said, you didn't do anything wrong. You can't be a background singer anymore. You've got to go out on yourself. You've got to be Luther now. It's time for you to do that, and I don't want you hiding behind being a background singer. You are ready to be something special and everything. And he had money saved, and he went and he decided to make his own demo. But that turned into an album, and through that, who did he use? Well, he used his New York friends that helped him create this record, from Marcus Miller, who was really young, and Yogi Horton, all the people that he met on jingle dates and everything, all these great musicians, and they put together this album. And at the same point, nobody wanted to sign him. Because, well, I mean, honestly, this fat young black guy, you know what I mean? Who's going to go and this? Until one guy took a chance on him, man, and it was at Columbia Records, and it boom, management, the whole deal. But the one thing that I saw with him was his confidence in himself and his ability to understand the music and what he could do with it. At the same point, when he was selling platinum and everything like that, he was watching the music scene go by him. And that, I mean, like, the new music happening in the 80s, funky, synth pop, just hearing people getting big and him staying on the same traditional R&B vibe. And he knew that he had to make a change. And Marcus had been starting to produce more, and we started working together, in 1985. And we had just finished Miles Davis's album. It wasn't even out yet. And, it's a huge, major piece of work. And so Luther wanted now Marcus to go and to help him cross over, because he realized that he was not going to go anywhere, any bigger, because he played the biggest places as an R&B singer. He played this festival, that was big, but he wasn't selling out Madison Square Garden or the Mio Arena here or something like that. He was selling nice halls, nice concerts, but that's not what he wanted. He wanted to be a superstar, and he knew the only way that he could get it was to change. And so he asked Marcus, what do we got to do here, man? I want you to, help me and all this other stuff. And Marcus said, I got this guy, Jason Miles, and we work together and everything. And he's on the cutting edge of all the new stuff happening and all the synthesizer stuff. And he's just finished Miles Davis. And I think that, we could start this and about building the material to the right way. It's got to be the material. That's got to change. It's got to be this. And he understood it. And so he brought me in and brought me to Montserrat in the British West Indies to start this album. And he came up to me in the airport in Antigua and said to me, of St. Martin, and said to me, look, I heard a lot about you with Marcus and everything, and I'm really happy you're here. And I could sell out Radio City Music Hall anytime I want to sell out Radio City Music Hall. I can be number one on the R&B charts anytime I want to be number one. But I want to be, on the pop charts. I want to be there with Michael Jackson, and I want to be there with, Lionel Richie and these people like that. And Marcus thinks you can help us get there. And I was like, well, I'll do my very best, and anybody, and because I want to play Madison Square Garden. I don't want to play Radio City Music Hall. And we started working on this album, Give Me the Reason. And a year later, he was, album was released. He was at Madison Square Garden.
Beautiful.
But I mean, it was him giving the ability to go and be open. That was the key. Yeah. He knew how far open he wanted to be. He also knew the depth of his material, what was important, and that is that there was something sacred, and those sacred was the ballads.
Yes.
You could not mess with those ballads. That was like he had to have a gold standard on that, you know, and he wanted to go and take it farther, you know, to get hipper stuff happening and try to do this, you know, but he needed to keep a tradition there and everything. And then there were the other parts where he would say, you know, he would say to Marcus, hey Marcus, man, you know, I want a song, it's got to be the hippest song, but we can play in the clubs, you know what I mean? By, you know, all the cool stuff on it and everything, you know, we can build some great shit on it, you know, because he knew that wasn't going to mess with his audience, but he also knew that if he can get in there, people go, oh, Luther, man, look at the stuff he's doing, you know, and when we did that, especially on the Give Me the Reason album, we had this tune, I Really Didn't Mean It, and that was like his first vibe into, you know, doing something a little more experimental for him. You know, and then the next album, Any Love, we took it even farther, which I thought was a masterpiece, but it didn't go to the same place. It didn't go to the same place of commerciality, but the songs were the best ever, and he was amazing on the album. And then after that, we had Here and Now, and that just like totally blew the whole thing open. Yeah. But that wasn't like an experimental. But at the same point, he said, no, we're using synthesizers, we're using drum machine, we're using this. You know, I want mini move, I want synthesizer bass on it and everything, but I want it within the context of the song. So he was really, really smart on that, you know. He knew how far he could push himself. And then like the last album that I consider that I really did with him, Power of Love, we had a tune on it called The Rush. And that was like on the edge. That was really edgy.
1991.
1991, yeah. The Rush. That was really, really cool. And, you know, because he even said it, that's, well, we got the hits, we got this, let's go, man, you know, let's try something totally different, you know. And that was the beauty of him, you know. But at the same point, you know, after my time with him, you know, which I left because a lot of ways I had nothing left to give him, except the same thing that I was giving him, you know. And he wasn't growing to the place of, you know, going to the place of he did the cutting edge already. Where's he going to go more? The next cutting edge wasn't a place he wasn't going to go to. Yeah. You know, so I kind of, you know, we kind of parted ways in a lot of ways. You know, I went back and did a few more things. I did a Christmas album with him, which was which was really cool. And then I did a song in 1990 or so, no 2000. I did. There was something going up, and Marcus just had said to me, man, I got to figure this out, man. You know, and I had been producing, and I was gone for 5 years from him, you know. And he called me up and said, hey, man, what do you think, man? You can come in and help with this? And I was like, yeah, man, let's go do it. It's going to be fun, you know. And so I went and I spent a week with them after that. And that was like the last time I saw him before he had the stroke. So, you know.
Wow.
I used to see Luther all the time. I mean, Luther, we were part of the family. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating the fact that you mention a lot the word confidence.
You don't have that in this business. You don't have anything.
And yeah, I was thinking about so how did Luther manage to cultivate this confidence throughout the years?
I have no idea. It's just he had confidence in his own ability. That's all. Something that you can't teach somebody.
You think that you cannot teach somebody how to be confident in a way that Luther was? Okay.
No way.
And how? Why is that for you?
How are you going to teach them to be confident? If they go home every night and look at themselves and doubt themselves, how are they going to have confidence, you know? You doubt the situations around you. You don't doubt yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I could doubt this freaking business every day, but I don't doubt the fact that I know what I'm doing and I know I can make great music. Yeah. And you don't even have to put that in front of me or even say that. When somebody writes about it, it's like, that's great. I really appreciate it. They're getting it. But they don't have to convince me that I know what I'm doing and that I have the confidence to put myself in the space that I belong.
I also wanted to ask you one thing about this, based upon your experience, because I always think in terms of the people will be listening to interview. So if you've got a lot of experience, you know, producing, you know, creating music, collaborating with the greatest ones. What is it one lesson that you've learned and you would love to give to the ones who are trying to build a path in music?
Listen to people that know more than you do. You know, I was in the studio looking around, seeing geniuses around me. Whoa, Aretha's hanging out tonight. Look, that's okay. Look at, you know, yeah, well, not going to bother Miles right now because he's in the middle of this shit and everything, you know, or seeing these people, or, you know, listening to what they have to say and taking and absorb all what they're saying because they know more than I do at that point. Yeah. And what am I getting? I'm getting their knowledge. You
Yeah.
want to constantly be accumulating knowledge from others that know more than you do. And then you can't be scared to make mistakes, as long as you learn from them.
What is it for you the most important element to master as a
master?
musician?
Well,
or
I think it'll come to it. As a musician, you know, my confidence in myself to play and to write and to know when I got something good and know when I should move on.
yeah,
The ability to seek advice from people and not be scared to say, hey man, come on man, tell me what you think of this shit. I'm kind of in the middle of something like that. And at the same point, it's also, you know, your ability to be able to navigate with people, to get the respect of others.
yes,
Is what the whole key of it is.
yeah,
You know, you have to you know, command that respect, and if they don't give it to you, then, you know, move on. You know, because not come off with a big ego. Be humble, because that is what'll bring people to you and everything. You know, your ability to be able to deal with them, to be able to go and embrace their ideas, to be able to go and navigate the situation. And making an album, a real album, is hard, very hard. You know, I mean, it takes weeks, months, sometimes to make a really good album. You know, really good. It takes months. You know, I mean, on and off, it took us a year and a half to make this one Miles Davis album. You know, and the whole thing is, in a year and a half, what changed? Can we make the shit we sounded in the beginning sounding like it now in the end, a year later? You know.
yes,
And I mean, you know, it's your ability to go and understand when things need to change, when they're going in the right direction, and also, you know, the ability you have to command respect of others that will come in and do the work for you and with you to go and help you get to that place you want to, because they like working with you.
yeah.
And another thing that I always tell people is, you know, what the first piece of advice that I got, and it's just a real New York slang language, you know, was, I said, can I have a piece of this great master, music master, and his a piece of advice to me, one of the first things, like in 1975, he said to me, always be cool with the bread.
Always be cool with the bread.
Right.
Okay.
You know what that means?
No,
It
actually.
means always be cool with the money.
Okay.
It means you start messing around with musicians' money, that's going to drag your reputation down faster than a bad gig. A bad gig is like, it wasn't a great gig, man. Whatever, you know, what do you do? You know, screwing somebody for money will be your will follow you around forever. You know,
Yeah.
there's people that I never worked with before that call up, and you know, that I called up and everything. Well, what's the money like? You know, like, and I said, well, let's talk about that. You know, what's your comfort zone? Really? You know, what's your comfort zone? Okay, I could do that. You know, I could do that, man. No problem. You know, well, that's great. Blah 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 blah. You know, and then the next thing you know, they'll go, and the person that recommended me to them, you know, they'll call him and say, hey man, do you know Jason Miles? Yeah, for Jason, man, of course, man. I told him to call you. Oh, really? Yeah, well, how is he with the music? Oh, man, don't just go and have a good time in and play. He'll take care of you. Don't even worry about that. And they come walking in the studio with like, hey, Jason, man, great to meet you, man. What's happening? You know, let's go. I say, let's play this back and everything. Really glad you're here today, man. It's going to be really cool. I really like this song. I think you're the right guy to play on it. Yeah, I hope so, man. I hope I don't fuck it up. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
well, let's go. And then for the next, you know, few hours, we would be in the room, or even if I send it to somebody.
Yes.
You know, I just sent the track to Prince's guitar player, Kat Dyson. I never worked with her before. And I said, you know, man, I heard you play, man. You play some funky shit, man. You know, and I need that on here. What should I do? I go, listen to the song, man. You're going to know what to do. It's the way I called you and everything like that, yes, you know. And then at the same point, you know, they'll say, you know, so tell me, you know, how much you charge and everything like that. Well, I charge XXXX, you know, for a track, you know, and everything like that. I'm going, I appreciate that, man, and you know what? You don't. I think you even deserve more than that on a track, but that's just not what I got right now, you know, because I'm funding it or whatever. You know what I mean? It's coming out of my own pocket. If it was a label, I'll write you the freaking check in 3 seconds. You know what I mean? Like I did to everybody over the years. But this, you know, I got to fund it myself. So if you can't do it, don't worry, man. Everything's cool. Nothing. I don't want you to, you know, get out of your comfort zone. You know, so you know, don't worry about it. And then I leave, and then maybe like about 3 hours later, I'd get a phone call, and they said, "Hey, man, I want to do your project, man. Let's see what we can work out. I want to do this. You know what I mean? I definitely want to do this." And so, you know, what happened? Well, they called up the person that recommended me and said, "Oh, man, you should work with Jason, man. You should. You know, you're gonna love. I'm sure the song's gonna be great and everything." Okay, and then they work with me. Why? Because it took me freaking 40, 50 years to freaking get to that place. You know, there's kids that get out of college. What are you? Oh, I'm putting together a European tour for my band and everything. How old are you, man? 22? You know what I mean? Yeah, where you been? What was the last hit record you had? Tell me, you know, and everything, you know, and like, you know, this cockiness also, you know, the ability sometimes of some of these people that not to listen to what the music is. They're taught notes and chops and vocal riffs and all that stuff are way more important than the absolute essence of the melody and the feeling you get out of it. Miles Davis, man, less is best. The less you play, man, that you can get the point across with, the better it is. Melodies are everything. It's all about the melody. If you can't come up with a great melody, you don't have anything. That's the truth. If you can't walk away remembering that song an hour after you did it, doesn't mean anything, man, you know?
There is something that I captured when I was listening to you about, you know, this, I mean, I believe very important aspect, which is, I think, the importance of decision making. Do you think decision making is probably one of the most important elements?
Well, yeah, because you can make the right decision or the wrong decision. But I keep on saying, it just depends on the experience you have to make that decision. I mean, I looked at things back and I talked to my wife about, you know, I made a mistake with this, you know what I mean? I made a mistake. I should have thought about it, but I wasn't even thinking about that. Well, that's what happened, and now you know. And everybody goes, you know, and goes to that. You just got to go on your instincts and really think it through and know that, you know, it's going to work because you believe in what decision you made.
Yes. So thinking about what we discussed, you know, so far, Jason, if you were, let's say, mentoring an independent artist starting today, what would you say to this person in terms of this is the most important thing you need to focus on? For example, when it comes to making business decision, what do you think is the crucial part within it?
Trust.
Trust. Why?
I can't trust you. What do I got? Nothing. You know, you got to learn. You got to see and analyze the situation, because a couple of bad mistakes, man, will set you back for a long time. I learned that too. Everybody learns it. It's an inevitability that something's going to happen, you know, because the arrow doesn't point straight up all the time, you know, and something's going to happen. What that is, I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
But with me, it was like trusting somebody and then realizing that I shouldn't have trusted them, you know. A lot of situations. I mean, you know, I can give you a list of, and then it's also to be able to deal with rejection. You have to be able to deal with rejection.
How do you deal with rejection?
I mean, you know, it's not fun, but it doesn't waver. You know, I mean, I think that it's like a number of things where the rejection could come from, do you not like the music? Do you just not like it? Do you think that there's something there? And then somebody criticizing you and saying, well, this lacks this lacks that, this lacks that. Or somebody saying to you, you know, I mean, it's really, really good. You know, I mean, I really like it, but that's not just what we're looking for right now. Have you tried them? You know what I mean? Or something like that, that at least know, you know, that like, okay, I'm there, it's just not the right fit.
Yes.
You know? Or what is the rejection? Or like, you know, you auditioned with the 10 other people and you didn't get the gig, you know what I mean? You know, it's always good at that point, you know, to see and not question anybody. Why did you turn me down? Why did you do this? You know, no, you know. So I realize you turned me down and everything like that. I do, and I'm not here to argue that. I'm just asking you to see what is it that I could do to get better, so the next audition goes better, or the next submission goes better for me. You know, but you know, is there something you saw that you can give me a piece of advice on, or something like that? And a lot of times people will come back to you with something.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I can't believe you turned me down, man. My shit was the best shit of everybody else's, blah, 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 blah. You can think that. But when you say that, it shows you your vulnerability and your not confidence in that you still know what you do. You know, there's tons of reasons why. You know, I take shit very personally sometimes, and when I tell people this and I tell people that, and I tell people, friends, they said to me, man, I'm telling you, I highly doubt if it's personal with all of this shit, And I said, well, I don't think it is. I just want to think about why it didn't go to that place. Well, politics play into something like, well, he's a friend of so-and-so's, and if I pick him, maybe the word will get back to him and we'll be able to do a little business rather than, well, I don't know this guy, he's really, really good, but what could happen, if I take him and everything? Well, then I lose out on that. I mean, all these decisions going into being made without you even knowing what part of the equation you're from.
100% agree with you. And sometimes I feel the same experience within me. So sometimes I take things, very personal. Mm-hmm. But I think it's part, of the process of growing as a human being and also as a creative person. Mm-hmm. There's two things I want to know about you. The first one is, the things you're working on and the things you will be putting out mm-hmm. in 2026. And also, how do you see today's jazz musical landscape and the differences between the past and the present?
As far as that goes, I mean, I'm excited in a lot of ways because I know that there's great talent out there. At the same point, I'm disappointed because I think many of them are in the wrong direction. They're too concentrated on playing too many notes. Too many notes, not enough melodic content, not a lot. The young guys are playing too many notes, and I'm not the only one saying that, man. I'm far from the only one saying that, man. Robert Glasper is all over the freaking place on the internet, talking about you all play too many notes, man. Your singers are all riffing too much, man. You're not getting into the song. You're not getting into this. You're just you're just showing your chops, and that ain't shit, And so if he's saying that, well, I know I'm in the right direction, Melody and music and composition is better. You don't get anywhere. No great songs, no Beatles, No great songs, no Miles Davis. When we made Tutu with Miles, I said to Marcus, man, what do you think is going to happen with it? What do you think we got to go in this direction? He goes, man, I'm trying to get Miles to play great melodies again. And that's what it was about. And the melodies were there, they were great, and boom, shit happened. And that's what I do. I try to write the best melodies I can. And not so you can play more notes and you can show everybody how great you play,
Yeah.
I want you to walk out of the gig remembering the song. And right now, 95% of the times I walk out of the gig without remembering the song.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think is that?
Because they're teaching them different shit in school now. It's more about education and more about theory and arrangement than it is about composition. Composition has gone into arrangement and theory. It hasn't gone into the simplicity,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, I played songs the other night, I think that people could walk out of there remembering a lot of the songs I played. Because they're memorable.
Yes.
But half the time I listen to people online, I don't hear shit.
And speaking of music, what are you working on at the moment?
Well, right now, I'm taking a different turn. I don't think that it's really worth investing money into making real new music. I have a big archive over the years that I've put together now, and I've got a lot of stuff in the can that I'm going to be releasing over the next couple of years. I've got my Bandcamp page is amazing. You can go to my Bandcamp page. There's like 20 of my albums on there. They're all great albums. That's where the artist has got to get his support from Bandcamp. I've got a book out. I'm writing. My second book is done now. My book's on Amazon. Extraordinary Journey of Jason Miles. It's a major story, man. I mean, people listen, people go and they get it. If you read that, you would probably have to do the interview because you'd see it all there. I have a new one, Journey to My Life in the Center of the Music Business. That's hopefully coming out next year. We'll see. And
nice.
then I have some great albums coming out that I've made already that are in the can that I'm going to be releasing. Historical albums I have also from some live shows with some incredible musicians. But there is something new, brand new coming out, and it'll be coming out in May, and it's to celebrate Miles Davis's 100th birthday. I've made a new album in his honor to celebrate his birthday of all new material based on our relationship together that I've written with influences of what I got from him and everything. Incredible musicians on it, great songs. and it's going to come out in the beginning of May.
Wow, fantastic.
And it's a great album. Just keep the name, because I can't tell you the name because somebody could go and snatch it up for me because it's a very original title. But I've got incredible art done by the woman that taught Miles how to paint, Jo Gelbart. She was with him for 7 years, and she did an original cover for me.
Wow.
And these are friends, and I went to all these different kinds of friends. I got Randy Brecker and Vinnie Colaiuta, one of the best drummers in the world, and Jeff Coffin from the Dave Matthews Band, and all these incredible artists and everything on it. And it's going to come out in May.
That was my conversation with Jason Miles, which I wanted to thank again for giving me this wonderful opportunity and making the time to talk about all things building a lasting music career through his lens, experience, taste, and everything that represents his artistry and integrity. And this conversation gave me lots of food for thought, and what stayed with me from this exchange is how clearly it shows that while the music industry keeps changing, the core principles of artistry don't. Making intentional creative decisions, learning from those who know more than you, and building trust both in the music and in the business around it are very important elements and aspects for you to really think of, to really, understand in a way that you can find your own space while staying true to yourself. So I hope you enjoy the exchange with Jason. And before you go, I would love to turn this into a two-way conversation. So I have a question for you. As you listened, what reflection stayed with you the most? Was it something about creative decision making, trust in the business side of music, or the way Jason sees today's jazz landscape compared to the past? I'd love to invite you to share your own input, reflections, thoughts, and also ideas by sending me a message on Instagram. If you don't follow me yet, you can find me on Instagram at Music Travel Guide, so you can reach out to me. Or if you want to share more, you can reach out to me by email at hello@musictravelguide.net. I generally read and reflect on every message I receive, so I would really appreciate to hear from you about today's episode with Jason. You will also find links to Jason's work and upcoming projects in the podcast show notes. Now, if this episode resonated with you, I want to invite you to share it with another fellow artist or musician who might need this perspective. And if you love this type of conversations with music experts, established music producers, singers-songwriters, arrangers, and influential people working in the music industry, make sure to follow the Music Travel Guide podcast and share it with another fellow independent artist who you think might benefit from hearing these exchanges. Now, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode with me, Michael Piardi, your host.